Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 469. Very nice. And today we're doing battle with Samira Gnar. And so Samira Gnar, this is the deck I took up to Masters. We're going to be featuring it today. And you daily viewers may take a look at this and say, hey Bust, this is very similar to the Illaoi Jarvan deck that you played in the previous video. And while you're not wrong, there are a lot of similarities between the two Warden of the Tribes decks. The Samira Gnar version plays out much differently than the Illaoi Jarvan one does. Illaoi Jarvan, much more interested in doing high impact things with just one unit, right? You're trying to do something big with the unit that you'll be, say, attacking with and then tumbling and then cataclysming. You really want to go tall on that one guy, as to whereas this deck functions much more like the Darius Gnar decks, to where you're trying to get a bunch of width with overwhelm units, and then you're just slamming those units into your opponents over and over again, trying to just get in the chip damage where you can, and then finishing off with a big attack, either by building up the board with Warden of the Tribes or using Decisive Maneuvers or Battle Fury to chunk in those last bits of damage. And so the things I'll call out with this deck, it's very important to ensure the survivability of your units. Not only are we trying to build up bigger boards for Warden of the Tribes, we managed to have Bonehide Tritail in here as well. And as you can imagine, having 3 different subtypes on the board makes the Bonehide Tritail much more powerful than if you only have one. And so we're going to kind of watch ourselves a little bit throughout the course of these games. We're going to take this kind of approach to where in the early game we're going to try and build up our unit stats. We're going to use the Omen Hawk, the Darkened Spear to put those bonus stats into our deck. We're going to try to avoid making trades, build up some board, and then once we've got a big collection of overwhelms on the board, we can start to attack at that point. I don't really want to come down, make a trade, make a trade, make a trade, and then just play a 3-2 Tritail. Those game sequences don't work out that well. We're going to wait until we can kind of crash in with a big board, hopefully have our units boosted with some stats. And so the things to kind of otherwise call out with this deck you may not be familiar with, it does have that very big overwhelming presence. If you want to watch from turn 4 forward, we are able to play either the Bonehide Tritail or Gnar. Then on turn 5 we can have a Saurion. On turn 6 we can have a flipped Frostcoat Cub, the Frostcoat Mother coming down on Overwhelm there, and then Warden of the Tribes closing things out on turn 8. This style of thing works very fantastically with Decisive Maneuvers, a card that doesn't really see much play outside of these Freylord, Nox, and Overwhelm style decks, but being able to stun your opponent's biggest blocker out of combat while giving a buff to all of your remaining Overwhelm units tends to come in for about 12 or 14 damage or so, and so this is the big closer in this deck. To whereas in that Illaoi Jarvan deck, we're trying to close out games with tumbles and cataclysms. Otherwise, the card that I've really been impressed with this style of deck is going to be the Elixir of Iron. Again, we're really trying to build up some board width so that we can activate our Tritails and get this big board of Overwhelms. And as this format has kind of played out to be very damage heavy with all of the Janna decks running around, being able to cheaply protect our units with an Elixir of Iron or get a single +1/+1 onto a unit does wonders in terms of surviving Mystic Shots and surviving the damage-based removal spells that we see out of the P and Z decks. And so I've become quite happy with that one in here. And so that is the deck. That's what we're doing battle with today. We've, of course, checked the pay-to-win price on this deck, and this is another one. This is another example of how you know the deck is good. It's because everything's already been turned Oh, shit! Oh, snap! I was wrong. I was wrong. The Bonehide Tritail was not turned premium. Oh my goodness! I'm glad I stopped and checked. That could have been a disaster. The Tritail, the cat, the only cat we've ever been playing, just not turning up with the premium. Phew, that feels bad. That feels bad. I'm embarrassed as a cat owner right now. So let's dive on in. So we'll see how the queues go today. I might need to kind of switch over to my secondary account for these Battles with Bust videos. I was playing at the gym this morning, and I played against the same guy playing Lurk 4 games in a row, and it really made my day. I just beat him 4-0. So if you really want to have a good way to start your day, just start it by smashing Lurk players over and over again. I assure you, it's going to feel pretty good. And so I dug it. I dug it for certain. But all right, into the battles up against Garen Galio. I don't know if this is. Well, I would assume this is Formidables. I was thinking Garen Volibear at the start, but seeing that it's Galio, we should be able to pretty closely assume that this will be Formidables. It tends to be one of the weaker matchups for us. A lot of it comes down to if they're able to stick a Balin or not, and so we'll see what turn 4 looks like in this game if the opponent's able to pop off with him and get that kind of growing, persistent stat line. Otherwise, we have a pretty good shot to take things down. Also worth noting, we did pick up Warden of the Tribes, very strong at taking over these matches, but we are on the odd attack token here, and so that's going to put us in a spot to where we can't attack with him until turn 9, and that can be a bit of a challenge to overcome. But with this, I'm going to just push for the big stat line. If we get a combat trick out of the opponent here, that would be great. But the main thing I'm really interested in with this turn is just giving the top 2 units of our deck with both the Darkened Spear and the Omen Hawk. Hopefully we draw a unit quickly and we can just start to tempo the opponent down with our big stats. Well, not going exactly how I hoped. I mean, the Lonely Poro does have a fairly big mountain of stats, but you can start to see where these Balins become very important with the opponent being able to come in and grow the board now. So we'll come in, just try and erase as many stats as we can. I know I talked about wanting to generate a wide board, but that's not how you really have to battle against the Formidables. The opponent has just all of these growing stats that you need to kind of find a way to deal with. As you shrink the health, you shrink the attack as well, and so it's you kind of double duty. Coming in and making blocks. Now this is kind of interesting. The upcycled rate kind of sucks here, but it's the better equipment. I'd like to take Shepherd's Authority. I find myself taking this more and more frequently in this format, but you know, it's a tough one to do. I think if we just get a chip shot into Balin, I'll be kind of happy with the turn. But now Samira, look at that. Samira's just ready to party. Coming in with that +2/+2, we can load her up with a Darkened Spear, load her up with a Rake. I don't know about you, but I got pretty excited about what's happening here. But we'll see. My kind of plan for the moment is to play the Poro, play the Darkened Spear onto the Poro, and then we'll look to hook the Balin with the Samira. The thing that's a problem here is if he has the single combat card, he can single combat down our Samira. There's just nothing we can do about that. We didn't have the mana to have the +3/+4 from the 3 sisters, and so just kind of is what it is in that space. I'm pretty confident that's what's about to happen to us. Are we willing to just pass the turn in this space? I think we'll still be okay. Like, just knowing that we can go into the next turn and protect our Samira is so big. Like, just the way this is sequenced, he 100% has that single combat card. But, I mean, at the end of the day, shrinking the Formidable Charger down to 3 isn't terrible. It still kind of plays into the themes we're trying to pull off here. Just not getting the scaling Balin off of the board is a real pain in the ass. Tritail turns up. Only got the 1 bonus stat on him, but he's still fairly meaty. We got Warden of the Tribes Part 2. Alright, we gotta try and take Balin down. It's just too much coming at us from what he's trying to do. I think throwing the Poro away is okay as well. Well, that's tough. Like, our hand sucks at this point, right? We can play the Tritail, and it's not particularly impressive. Let's keep the Poro at home. Yeah. Sometimes you have it all. Phew. It's like, I just keep going back to that Samira turn and knowing what was about to happen if we just waited. It's just like, if they don't have it, the game's just so over. Being able to go into the next turn. And so, like, getting the Balin off of the board, he's given the opponent like 2 extra attacks since then, and so It's kind of brutal. But we do have a reasonable amount of interactivity for this next turn. I mean, the way this game has gone, I have to assume he's about to single combat down our Tritail off of the Garen. But if we can make it into this next turn and get a Warden down, and then also have the mana to Whirling Death, we might be able to do something there. Looks like he's just building up to an open attack, though. Oh. He doesn't do it. He doesn't play the removal. Nice. No way he lets us Warden, right? Yeah, I was gonna say, there's no way that that's about to be a thing. So let's see. Are we still gonna fall short this way? Whirling Deathing down the Garen. It looks like we'll still take 6. We're gonna have to Three Sisters as well. So let's go about it this way. I would like to make sure that we at least have one unit on board as we try and play the Warden of the Tribes next turn, and so we could kind of get away from things this way. I think it's safe to say if opponent has any kind of interactivity, we just lose the game anyways, and so let's go ahead and take it with this angle to where we at least get to keep our Tritail if this combat ends right here. I mean, the way this game's gone, I assume he's going to have a combat trick or something. It felt like he was going to have another single combat last turn. Yep, sure. But this puts us in a spot to where we at least have something. I feel like if we crawl into the next turn and don't have any units on board, then it's just completely over. Please let me surrender. God, we're going to have to watch a Garen video now. Oh my god, I pushed the surrender button so many times. There we go. All right, next game. Still happy with how that went. I know it wasn't a victory, but whew, yeah, I'm curious. We should have just gone back on that. We should have just passed on the Samira turn when we had the chance and given up on that value. At any rate, next game underway. And I will mention, in the previous video, I was talking about the Mastering Runeterra Opens. They have this big idea coming into Ruthless Rumble season that we're going to play some Warden of the Tribes decks and we're going to play Jax Ornn, and that was what I was trying to feature leading up to the Rumbles and leading up to the Mastering Runeterra Open. But I couldn't find any like advertisements for the Open. I looked on the website, I looked on Discord, I looked on Twitter, I looked on Matcherino, and nothing turned up. So I sent them a message and they said that they're not doing it this month. They said they're re-envisioning how they will be doing the opens, and so see if they come back with the next set release or how they're going to handle that. It's tough though in terms of trying to get those kind of events up and running. Like if you think of the space of Magic, it's where we always it's where we always find ourselves going, isn't it? But if you think in the context of Magic, it's always just a big advertisement, right? That's what the Pro Tour is. That's what Worlds is, and all these events. They're just trying to draw eyes on the game, and it's just an advertisement at the end of the day. Like with Magic, you can kind of see the path to monetization, right? Star City Games runs their events. They get to vendor off and buy list a bunch of stuff. If you look towards Wizards of the Coast, they get to sell more packs, but like looking in the space of Hearthstone or looking in the space of Runeterra, like you can see where certain people get to make money, right? You can see where Riot can make money in drawing people into the game. You can see where Blizzard can make money with Hearthstone, bringing people into the game. But like Hearthstone was never able to really get a competitive circuit going. And I think that that's largely in the case. Like, how do you monetize a competitive circuit in Hearthstone? It's basically just drawing in viewers and selling advertisements. And so I think the Mastering Runeterra folks had a better model in the sense that they could like try and sell subscriptions to their site. But at the end of the day, I hope it's enough. Hope they're making enough cash money to really make it worth their while. But we'll see how this game goes. Opponent getting a little bit bigger than us on board with the Weapon Masters. Again, that's okay. We have reasonable interactivity out here. We're getting up a decent board for our Bonehide Tritails, and we already have Warden of the Tribes in hand. And so if the game gets to expand on just a little bit, we'll start getting these higher value plays down on board. Now, let's just take it slow. He's getting a very interactive board, and he's getting a bigger board than us here. And so I want to be in a space to where we can play some of these combat tricks if we need to. And then if he just sends the turn back to us and we 3-bank, that's completely fine. Interesting. So he goes for the Gnar instead of going for the Samira. Pretty sure we want to hang on to him. He's giving us the stat line for our Tritail. So he should be big enough here, right? If opponent has a +3 health card, a +1/+3 or whatever we call it, Gnar is going to survive that. Also just kind of nice here overall, given that if he doesn't play any tricks, he gets to keep all of his health. So the thing we haven't been doing here is one of the big bonuses to playing Samira with Gnar is you get the flares. And so you can just flare your opponent's face whenever you feel like it. That'll come in and flip the Gnar. Could have done that on the previous turn, but I do like keeping the opponent's board small. And that's the kind of space it feels like we're in right now, is just keeping these units on the smaller side of things, building up to Warden of the Tribes. As we get into turn 8, we should be able to, pretty safely get there, as long as we aren't throwing our units away. So I feel safe in that space. Questions, do we want to send the Samira into the Destined Poro? I think it still has to be safe. I mean, the opponent seemed like they might have had a trick on that last go-around, but they didn't do it. We have an Elixir of Iron now just to be safer. So I think this is okay. We can still build up this next turn to ideally, play a Decisive Maneuvers and then play a Flare, get the Gnar to flip, and then follow up with Warden of the Tribes. Like, we have a pretty powerful combo of stuff that we're getting to pull up here. Hey, somebody learned about Cataclysm. That's pretty cool, right? I dig it. I dig it. We're gonna Elixir of Iron through this, but I'm glad to see people picking up on the technology. Samira is just a definite safe play here, especially as we're looking to build up to Warden of the Tribes and give her a big pile of stats to go on with. Definitely want to keep her alive. So here, another spot, fine with a 3-bank. We don't have a ton to do with our hand anyways. There is a small amount of desire to go ahead and flare. Maybe that's what we do. We'll just go ahead and flare. That's going to guarantee us the Gnar flip. And then if this turn does come down to it, we can find ourselves playing Whirling Death, especially maybe a Whirling Death off of Gnar, and then getting that free Pokey Stick. And we can take a 3-bank into the next turn. We wouldn't have any more cards we could play next turn with our Wardens, but there's some possibility for greatness here. All right. So I think we're going to have to get one person into combat. It's got to be the Tritail, right? But, like, what I'm looking at here is if we just... this is a lot grosser than I want it to be. So we're going to look to Pokey Stick the Blacksmith, but we still need to block it. If something goes wrong, we want to make sure that unit dies. Let's see here. I'm aiming to Whirling Death down the Gnar. So we can block him with our Gnar just in case something goes wrong. But the idea here is that his Gnar is going to be dead. All right, so this is the critical turn. If things go right enough here, we should be in decent shape next turn for our Warden of the Tribes. If he's got a combat trick or something here, then we're going to fall apart. I really wish we had a Elixir of Iron for this turn, but giving up on Samira is kind of painful. Okay. So it didn't go how we wanted, but at least we're not dead. It's always a bonus in the lands of Legends of Runeterra, huh? At least at least I'm not dead. Now our unit boosters turn up. Day late and $1 short, Omen Hawk. Okay, GG. Painful stuff. In those matchups, you're really looking for the early game unit boosters, and we didn't have anything turn up. And so it's like if you look at that previous game, to where we're able to start off with Omen Hawks and start off with attacks from the Darkened Spear, like that's how we want all of our early games to be going off. And opponent was able to just get bigger units on board, and we could never really catch up or keep up. And so I'm curious if we weren't just like a little overly aggressive with our Samiras there in the early game. Maybe we should have just let her go. So this, with Infinity Patrons here, the Fizz Nilah Freylord deck, this should be a Battle Fury Fizz deck, and so I'm going to hang on to Three Sisters. It can do quite a bit of work on the opponent's big OTK turns, and if we don't have some way to interact with that Fizz, then we're going to run into some problems. And so we'll keep it. It's not super appealing in the early game, but I think we'll be glad that we have it in the mid game there. Alright, not a bad start with the Omen Hawk though. It says, check this out. I boosted my dog friend right from the get-go. Elixir of Iron, sure. Not a bad start. Didn't really give up a lot there. No, just a big curve right into the Tri-Tail that's already got bonus stats. You gotta dig that. So here, we're gonna take this Sandstorm Amulet that's gonna let us challenge at the Nilah, right? We can block because we have Brash, we have 4 attack to potentially jump in front of her. It says you're not allowed to do that, but I liked that potential there. I'm not certain if we'd even really want to block anyways. We're about to smash with this giant Tri-Tail, and losing out on the Blacksmith would be kind of a bummer there. Alright, then I think we'll leave the Cub at home. Like, I envision that we can make some better usage out of these units a little bit further down the road, and so I at least want to be in a spot to where we can get some trades, and then, you know, we're building up to this Elixir of Iron pretty quick. Like, feel much better if we're having the Elixir in some of these combats. Alright, block. We have a mountain of tricks here. This has to go well for us, right? I had to stop and check the mana. It's like you see the Nilah come in, and I'm like, okay. I gotta see if the Battle Fury's about to come at us. We haven't been dropping any Battle Furies today, but you gotta check in on the possibility. Now this is actually kind of interesting in the sense that I still want to save this Three Sisters for the event that he's got just a big Fizz. Like, a Battle Fury Fizz is how we're going to actually end up losing this game. Like, I'm pretty certain that we just want to be dropping the Elixir of Iron here. Protects our unit. He gets to keep Nilah for sure, but I think we're just ultimately going to be happier saving this Three Sisters for that big Battle Fury Fizz style of turn. Now these units are, these Poros aren't looking super ideal. Let's at least get Gnar a little bit more combat ready.
This would be a good winter.
Trying to be mean to our Tri-Tail, huh? Don't particularly appreciate that. I don't particularly appreciate it. So let's send in everybody now. If he wants to block the Omen Hawk with the Starlit Seer, I'm fine. Otherwise, the Omen Hawk is going to win all of these other combats. So that's pretty good and fair. Here comes a shenanigan. Look out, folks. The shenanigan incoming. Can't be that bad, right? Just has to be 1 point of damage.
Is that all you have?
Blessed by snow and stars.
Alright. So we'll lose our Tri-Tail, still get in a bunch of damage. I'm pretty okay with the outcomes here. Like, we could have potentially played some Lonely Poros, but I don't think we really need them. I'm still pretty happy with the game plan here, right? Have faith in the game plan. We're just gonna save the three sisters for the flash freeze, and hopefully that'll be enough. It's just one of these spots now where it's like, how do I ever lose this game? It's Fizz and a Battle Fury. Like, we're even pretty high at this point, probably not dying to Fizz, but that's how they're gonna try and go for this. Look at the 11-11 Tide Dancer, huh? You guys bringing out the big boys today, bringing out the big guns.
An auspicious season.
And Nilah. All right. So he's got Brash on the Seer, not on the Tide Dancer, though. The Tide Dancer can get one more spell and then do an activate. It's not going to be enough to kill us. We can get him with that surprise Battle Fury if we need to, you know. That's what the game is all about. The real question is, do you ever just do it for the memes, you know? You ever just do it for the memes? Bring out the Battle Fury, get him real good. I think we're going to skip on that one today, but...
Blessed by snow and
Alright, let's block the boat. It's going to take us to 8. Sure.
an auspicious season.
Alright, let's stop here. We had access to that pokey stick in hand, but... just take it a touch slower. Wonder if he can ever lifesteal here. Yeah, it says we're at lethal. You can try and zing us with the flash freeze, you know, but we got the Battle Fury ready. We got the Samira into Flare into Pokey Stick kind of thing. Lots of options to finish this one off. GG. On to the next one. I'm so glad we aren't playing against Lurk 4 times in a row. It was quite the start to the day. Quite the start. That guy might have just quit LOR. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't get what kind of space you're in mentally to where you're like, I'm just going to play a bunch of Lurk today. This is going to be a good time. I guess it does have those big dopamine hits or serotonin hits or whatever the feel good hit is to where, oh my God, we spoke the name that shall not be said and it turns right the fuck up. But, you know, I don't know what feeling people have to where they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play Lurk today. It's gonna It's gonna be a good day. Alright, so let's just let the turn end. We can add in Samira. If opponent's going to have a free attack fish, whatever that guy's called, we have the Elixir of Iron at home to deal with it. I think we just want to pass here and let it go. He's not doing anything. He's just giving up on turn after turn after turn of being able to hit a Lurk. And I don't feel like there's a lot of reason to get super involved with what's happening here. Alright, Samira's going to be fine. It's one of the things we haven't really talked about with Samira is you do have a lot of opportunities to play cheap spells through this deck. As we have things like Elixir of Iron, we have the Poro that generates a Poro, we have the Omen Hawks and everything. We have a lot of ways to help her get that level up if you want to do it. And so she has a lot of strength in that sense, and so always worth noting. Gives you a little bit of reminder on the turn when you play Omen Hawk and you play Elixir of Iron. So let's just keep going big. Opponent can play like the 3 health Lurk, right? The 2/3 predict Lurk, or he can play like a, what's his name? Pike? But there's not too many units that can actually combat a Samira here. And so I think she should be a free attack. We can just go ahead and get our big boy on board in the Tri-Tail. Let's see. The Hammer Snout can't block a Samira. Pretty cool. Alright, our friends are gonna start to fall though, right? They all have they all have the vulnerable attached to them. But he's gonna, oh, he's not gonna go for the empty board. Ah, that makes sense. That makes sense. He's got the Sharkling in hand. So how do we want to go about this? It's like I'm leaning towards just picking up the extra flare. So we can flare, and then we can play Innovative Blacksmith, and then the next turn we can drop the Tri-Tail. I think that's okay. The other angle we have is that we can just go ahead and play Tri-Tail and then play Sari on next turn, but I think I like just getting this damage in. So we'll pick up the free flare, add in the blacksmith this turn. The next turn we can Poro, we can Tri-Tail. We can plunder that Poro if we want. So he's got a lot of opportunities here. Did you put this on your bingo card for the day, or gonna we're gonna activate Plunder Poro? Oh snap! I think we still want to do it. Like I want to get this Tri-Tail down, and it's like, what if we hit Challenger? Right? We missed. We got the super unblockable Poro, but man, he had some opportunity there. Still looking pretty good. Opponent doesn't have any mana left this turn. I don't think Zerzerath can really flip this turn. We'll just have to see how that goes. Now, the thing I'll like to always call out against the Lurk decks as we get here in the late game, if he plays a... what's her name? If he plays a Rek'Sai here, we're just going to hit her with the Flash Freeze right from the get-go. There's no need to try and get super clever with Rek'Sai in the middle of combat. You just can't let her flip. She gets too much advantage if that happens. And so I currently want to keep this Three Sisters for the event that the opponent's going to have a Rek'Sai. So we'll load up the Tri-Tail. It's a little scary loading up the Tri-Tail. He has a vulnerable, which is fine. I was worried about the Tri-Tail getting hit with a Blood in the Water. That would have been fairly annoying. Really surprised to see these Lurk units coming in. Well, you're never gonna lethal. You're just gonna you're trading your Under Titan for a Poro.
It can be undone.
Okay. Still looking good. Saurion in. Gonna look to add the Overwhelm Cub here, and then if he doesn't put a big boy on board, we can hit it with the Scout. So currently, just add more Omen Hawks. Like, him adding in additional units here doesn't strike me as too bad. This is actually a bad one with with the Under Titan hitting. One of his units can survive the Saurion. This, but I think this is okay. I wasn't anticipating him being able to kill one of our big boys, which is probably a little sloppy, but. I think we're still in pretty good shape.
No need to make a name for myself, just an impression.
All right, we're good to go now. All right, we're starting to drop GGs at this point. Got to assume it's a GG at some point, right? Now he's gonna drop a Rek'Sai, and he's gonna drop a he's gonna drop Blood in the Water. Say, oops.
For them, the last thing they saw was me.
Yeah, that was so wild. During the Eternal season last season, I didn't play a single game of Standard because Eternal's so fun. Like, I really enjoyed the Eternal format. But like, whenever you would go to runeterra.ar, it automatically loads up to Standard, and it's like the top deck in the meta is Lurk. You're just like, there's no way that's actually real. Like, it just, I don't know, the Lurk players searching for the scratchers are feeling pretty good about what's happening there or something. All right, on to the next one, though. Up against Illaoi Swain, or not Illaoi Swain, Illaoi Jarvan. Got to find some of our unit boosters for the early game. Wouldn't mind having a flash freeze or something as well. But, ooh, look at this. This is a this is a start. This is about as bad as it can possibly get for a start on the odds, right? If we're on the evens, like, maybe we get to play the Warden of the Tribes on turn 8 and just get a free kill. But, man, not being able to attack with these Warden units until turn 9, that's pretty dangerous. It's pretty rough, especially with opponents starting with Idol. I guess it could have been worse. We could have mulliganed into, like, Raptors or something instead of hitting these 1-drops, but oof. Hey, Tritail. Workable. Another Poro. I was trying to consider, like, how invested we want to get in this board. We do have the Three Sisters in hand. I think we probably need to be in that spot to where we're not coming out here and just trying to make these trades, but all right. The cat's ready.
We move against fear, against doubt.
Alright, well, this Illaoi's scary. We do not have the interactivity we need, but I think we have to just build up board still. Like, we can't realistically come down here and get in front of these units and try and decisive maneuver here. Let's just take all of this. My My concern with taking all of it's like we have a stun and a Three Sisters, but that just like has to work. If it doesn't work, then we're so boned. But I mean, I guess at this point we really just need something to go right, and we can stop 2 of the overwhelm units, so that's at least something. We're just dead. We don't have the manas. Okay, GG. That kind of is what it is. That's one of the dangers of playing the Warden's decks. Hey, it's essentially starting with a mulligan to 5 there. If we were in the parlance of Magic, just being like, all right, well, I got these 2 dudes. I literally can't play this game. Let's see how my 2 cards can hold up. GG. The Illaoi decks are one that's always interesting to me, and so the way that this meta has kind of like shaped up in my brain is I think all of the Janna decks are essentially just better Nora decks, right? And so what the Nora decks in the past would do was just flood the units with flood the board with a bunch of units, and then grind you out somehow, right? As you have to come through and attack through all those stats that are on board. You're gonna lose cards in the process to where the opponent's not really spending any mana. And here, this is tough. We're up against Bard Janna. It's going to take it a while to get rolling, and so we don't necessarily have to have the unit boosters in the early game, but I wouldn't mind them. Let's hang on to an Elixir and a Blacksmith. The Elixir is still quite good against this deck. But no, like what the Nora decks of the past used to do was they would just flood the board with the units and then be like, all right, well, I'll just win the game eventually, right? And that's what the Janna decks kind of do, but they just do it so much better, right? They take a couple of turns to wind up, and then they just flood the board with a bunch of dudes. And oh, this is going to be painful. I'm going to play, I guess the 1 point of health we'll just have to lose on. It's too good for opponent if we just let the guy, if we don't play anything and he just gets to pass. But no, that's to me what the Janna decks are all doing. It just looks a little bit different, right? And then they get to play all the 3 power units for free, and then from there, they just win the game just like drawing a ton of cards. And so the way that you tend to smash through that, just playing a bunch of big overwhelms, right? And that's why the Illaoi decks have really kind of kicked off. But Illaoi really struggles if you're not able to pop off with your Illaoi, and so. What it kind of strikes me as is that they, or I'm sorry, what tends to happen with Illaois is just like flash freezes and vengeance style cards tend to turn up, and then the deck just gets shut down. It's like if you want to beat Illaoi, you can. It's not that crazy of a thing to do. All right, I'm losing my train of thought though. Let's get back into action here. We can deal with this scrap trap eventually. I was kind of liking this thing to where we're just out here building up some board. We already got Warden of the Tribes in hand, and we just need a little bit of time. And so we didn't get a block on the scrap trap before. I'm fine to just slam units into it now, or slam a Samira into it. That feels pretty decent as well. We'll see what we can do. Did get his Janna down though. Gonna start popping off. Gonna start popping off with those boom baboons, you know? Bringing out old Bard and the Flame Chompers. Holy shit, I didn't realize the Scrap Traption leveled up a Bard. I guess that makes sense. Scrap Traption's normally like a 0/0 or something. And so it just immediately puts 12 stat onto Bard. That's kind of insane. Little insane, not big insane.
Leap of faith, huh? You'll catch me, right?
All right, let's protect our Samira from nonsense, and then I don't want to lose any units on this turn. And so the idea is we're just going to build up to this Warden of the Tribes on turn 8, and if we can have more units on board, that's going to be more stats and stuff. Gotta love getting your more stats and stuff. Probably gonna be a rough day here for Samira. I don't think she's gonna survive through this.
My tempest shall punish the wicked.
But it's still okay. We're still cruising on with our game plan. Get the Poro down. We'll get the Cub down. The Cub capable of blocking the Scrap Trap, assuming he doesn't spend a burn spell on it. You know, we're getting built up.
In you, I see my will made manifest.
Janna, your wind makes my burdens lighter.
Just zero interactivity in hand is kind of awkward, though.
My vortex shall
Interesting.
consume you.
All right, Team Poro won the board. Let's see if we can survive a turn. I don't think any of these attacks here are going to be worthwhile. Gotta wait on our Warden.
The Zephyr heralds the squall.
You gotta feel a little better with the Whirling Death popping up. The other big thing Whirling Death lets us do is as we look to get into this next turn, we can play the Warden and have a 3-bank. Falling to 11 is probably okay. That's as much as we can really drop on the board here. I have to assume if he's attacking with Janna that the Sarion's just gonna die. But if he's gonna do stuff in combat, we can try and Whirling Death her down.
My wind is at your back. Go.
Should be fairly tough to take down the Sarion from 5 mana. Like, he needs 2 spells to do it. Still scary stuff, though. It's like, if we don't win the game on our next attack, we're just super likely to get burned out. They have so much card draw and stuff, but feels good in that space at least. Get our Tritail on board. We've got 2 Overwhelmers for this this +5 stat Warden of the Tribes. Definitely be doing a little popping next turn. Might have enough health to survive it. Gonna drop that Mystic Shot on our Poro. Rough day to be a Jubilant Poro, huh? But that's fine, right? If he's erasing our Poros, then he's not sending damage to the face, and so gives us much more opportunity to clear this game out. Got that Bard on board, though. He doesn't have a ton of chimes, is where I think we're a little bit safe. Whiff. The world's biggest Zonite Urchin coming through. There's the chimes. All landing on the Urchin. Oof. Not bad, my dudes. But what do we got? Like 32 health. He needs 12 health to block with. He can definitely get through this turn. He can block with everybody but Bard and not die.
Rethink your choices.
You get him to 2. Got the lonely flare in hand saying, I want to help out, boss. I want to do it. I want to do it. I was a little worried here for a moment in the sense that Bard, I was like, I had to stop and think what the Bard flip was, and it's this card draw thing. I was a little worried it was the stun thing, like stun, deal 2 damage. That's a little bit more problematic in that space than him drawing cards, but we got out of that. Now here, I just want to gain the health, right? I'm going to play the Innovative Blacksmith. We'll play Sarion and try an open attack next turn. We do have access to the Anakas here, but I think gaining that 1 point of health is going to be a little bit more important than getting the high impact play from the Anaka.
Fill your lungs and cry, Janna.
He only Janna'd 1 card, right? So he doesn't get to draw 2. You have to updraft 2 to draw 2. So he doesn't get to draw an extra 1 next turn, right? I'm pretty sure I'm right. Okay, no health boosters, so we'll take the Overwhelm.
Cast aside fear. I am with you. The Zephyr heralds the squall.
And maybe we do end up having to play Anaka next turn. I don't know. We got a ton of dudes on board, but it's always so scary. It's like if the attack fails next turn, we're definitely hosed. So, like, we need to be sure that this attack's going to be good. And it's scary, right? When you got the 3 health Sarion, the 3 health Blacksmith, you can block the Bonehide Tritail with Bard. Like, one more Chime does a ton of work in terms of preventing the damage. And so, I'm a little scared.
Wind need not be seen to move our world.
Leap of faith, huh? You'll catch me, right?
Who plays these Janna cards, am I right? Oh, I'm blocking. Like, this is how we end up losing this game, right? Is if we get in the space here to where he can just burn us out. Pretty tempting to just go ahead and throw a block in front of this one. Like, I think he only gets to draw 1 card next turn, right? I'm still... I don't know. I haven't played enough Janna to be super familiar with... you have to updraft 2 to draw 2. I think he only gets to the 1. Because he didn't meet the full requirement.
Storm unrelenting.
Right, 1 card draw. Alright, I don't care about this stuff, right? He can add dudes, he can spread out the board. The thing that ultimately scares me on this attack is, like, we attack and he's like, LOL, I'm going to play a draw 2, and then I'm going to play another draw 2. Like, there's just a bunch of opportunities for him to get nonsense out there on the board. And I don't really want to be seeing that. So, alright, not a bad set of games. We didn't get to do all of the combos, right? We didn't find any big decisive maneuvers on the day, but I think it was a pretty good intro, a pretty good start into what this deck is capable of. And we ran against a pretty capable range of opponents today. And so, again, the way that I like to start these games off with this decks, I really like to look for the unit boosting stuff in the early game, the Omen Hawks, the Darkened Spears. They're just so good as you get to level up the stats at the early point of the game. If you hit a 3/4 Frostcoat Cub or a 3/3 Innovative Blacksmith, or you get a bonus onto a Bonehide Tritail, like, with so much of the removal in this format being based out of P and Z, and that removal being like deal 2, deal 2, deal 3, just a singular point of health can do so much work in terms of just gaining you a bunch of tempo. As the opponent plays a Mystic Shot and fails, they spend 2 mana on a Mystic Shot, you spend 1 mana on Elixir of Iron. Like, it just does tons of work in terms of buying you time. And it just feels really special in that way. But, at the end of the day, you are just a big Overwhelms deck. If you've been familiar with Darius Gnar style, Bone Club and Rico Rex style decks, has a lot of those undertones to the deck happening, to where you're trying to just get that big board of Overwhelms, and then decisive maneuvers can come in and just clear out those games where you get this. Like, if you think of that last game that we were in where we're playing against Kawako, it's like if you get to stun that 12 health Bard, like, you're just immediately dealing 12 to the face, not to mention the other +2s that you get to your other Overwhelm units. Is just very easy for decisive maneuvers to OTK in these style of decks. And so, good stuff. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too, because that's going to do it for us today. So hope everyone enjoyed the video. Hope you maybe learned a thing or two along the way, and you had a good time watching. So this is Bust, and we thank you for being here.